Here's a strange fact. A TV show can win a major award for being the best in its genre. It can pull in the third biggest premiere audience in the history of its own network. Critics can like it. Audiences can like it. And the company that owns it can still, technically, on paper, not have renewed it. That is exactly where Welcome to Derry sits right now. And the man in charge of HBO just gave us a new update on it, buried inside a much bigger interview about Emmy nominations. So today we're breaking down what Casey Bloys actually said, what it means for Season 2, and why this show is being handled completely differently than almost anything else on HBO's slate. Stick around, because there's a 3-season plan here that most casual fans don't fully know about, and it changes how you should be watching this whole rollout. Now let's set the table first. Welcome to Derry landed on HBO in October 2025. Within its first 3 days, it pulled in enough viewers to become the third biggest series debut in HBO Max history. Only 2 shows beat it: House of the Dragon and The Last of Us. That's the company this show is keeping. And it didn't fade. By the time the Season 1 finale dropped in mid-December, the show had climbed to its highest single numbers yet, averaging close to 20 million viewers globally across the season. For a horror prequel with no built-in movie stars carrying it, that is a genuinely rare outcome. Critics mostly agreed it earned that audience. On Rotten Tomatoes, it landed around an 80% critic score, with audiences rating it even a touch higher. Reviewers pointed to strong new characters, some inventive horror set pieces, and a willingness to expand Stephen King's universe instead of just repeating it. So by every normal metric, this is a hit. Which makes the next part actually interesting. Here's where a lot of coverage gets this wrong. People hear "not officially renewed" and assume there's a problem behind the scenes. Executives are worried. The budget got questioned. Something's off. That is not what's happening here, and Bloys has now said some version of this multiple times across several months. Back in January, when Deadline first pressed him on the delay, he pushed back hard on the idea that anything was stuck. His words were that the show was, quote, "not in limbo at all," and that it was a huge success for HBO. Then in March, at the Saturn Awards, where Welcome to Derry actually won Best Horror Television Series, co-creator Andy Muschietti was asked directly about a second season. He gave about the shortest possible answer: yes. His sister and co-creator Barbara Muschiettis backed that up days later in a separate interview, saying the plan is very much real, and that when HBO does make the announcement official, it'll be a real green light, not just a studio trying to look confident. And now, in this newest interview tied to HBO's Emmy nominations for this year, Bloys was asked again. Welcome to Derry actually scored nominations this time around for its main title design and its visual effects work, part of a huge haul of 122 total nominations for HBO and HBO Max this cycle. When the Welcome to Derry question came up, Bloys gave what might be his clearest statement yet. He said the team is working on a take for Season 2, and they're building out scripts. He said he's very inclined to move forward, obviously, because the show performed so well. And he added that he's feeling very good about what he's heard from the writers so far. Translation, in plain English: the deal isn't signed, but everyone involved is already acting like it is. So why the holdup at all, if everyone's this confident? This is the part that actually separates Welcome to Derry from almost every other prequel currently on television. Take a show like House of the Dragon. It's adapting Fire and Blood, an existing book by George R.R. Martin. Take The Last of Us. It's adapting a video game with an established plot from start to finish. Those writers' rooms have a map. They know where the story ends before they start. Welcome to Derry does not have that luxury. Stephen King's original novel gives the creative team scattered fragments. A few paragraphs here. A historical event mentioned in passing there. The show has to take those fragments and build entire seasons around them from scratch. Season 1 did this with something called the Black Spot Fire. Season 2 is expected to center on something called the Bradley Gang Massacre, a violent event that gets referenced in King's book but never gets the full story treatment. The show has to invent that story practically from zero. That is a fundamentally harder writing job than adapting a novel scene by scene. And according to Bloys, HBO's actual policy here is to wait until the writers themselves are excited about the direction, rather than greenlighting purely off the strength of the ratings. Which, if you think about it, is the opposite of how a lot of networks operate. Usually a hit show gets rushed into another season immediately. Here, the hit show is being made to wait until the story earns it. Now here's the part that I think deserves way more attention than it's gotten. This was never meant to be a one-off prequel. The Muschiettis have laid out what's basically a 3-season structure, built entirely around Pennywise's mythology from a book. In King's original story, the entity that becomes Pennywise resurfaces in Derry roughly every 27 years, feeding, causing tragedy, then retreating for another generation. Season 1 took place in 1962, the era right before the kids from the original IT movies grow up to fight it as adults. Season 2 is expected to jump back 27 years earlier to 1935. And if the plan holds, a potential Season 3 would go back another 27 years, landing around 1908, tied to an event mentioned in the book called the Kitchener Ironworks explosion. That means this show isn't really telling one story stretched across seasons. It's telling 3 separate eras of the same town, working backward in time, each one built around a different historical tragedy from King's mythology. It's an unusual structure for television. Most prequels move forward. This one is deliberately moving backward, digging deeper into the town's history with every new chapter. Because of that time jump, most of the cast you met in Season 1 simply cannot return. These aren't ageless characters. Jumping 27 years back means an almost entirely new ensemble. There's one clear exception, and it's the obvious one. Bill Skarsgård is expected to continue playing Pennywise in his human form across every era, since the entity itself doesn't age the way people do. He's also an executive producer on the series, so his involvement isn't just a casting decision. It's baked into how the show gets made. The other character likely to return is Ingrid Kirsch, a figure who actually showed up briefly in a Season 1 flashback set in this exact 1935 time period. Since the character already exists in that era, expanding her role for Season 2 is a fairly natural move. Beyond those two, expect an almost entirely fresh cast, fresh setting, fresh side characters, all built around 1935 Derry. Let's talk timing, because this is where fans get frustrated the fastest. Even once an official renewal lands, that's just the starting gun. Scripts still need to be finalized. Casting takes months. Then there's production itself, plus the visual effects work a show like this requires, since Pennywise isn't exactly a simple effect to pull off. Given all of that, most realistic projections point toward filming beginning sometime in late 2026 at the earliest, with a release landing somewhere in the 2027 to 2028 window. That's not a delay caused by problems. That's just the honest runtime required to make a show like this properly, especially one being written from scratch rather than adapted page by page. And look, the show's own history supports that kind of patience. This series was first reported as being in development all the way back in March of 2022. It didn't actually premiere until October 2025, 3.5 years from first announcement to first episode. If that's the baseline, a multi-year wait for the follow-up season isn't unusual. It's just the pattern this franchise has already established. Here's my honest read on all of this. In an industry where streaming shows get canceled after one season constantly, and where sequels frequently get rushed out just to capitalize on hype, watching a network deliberately slow down a hit show to get the writing right is genuinely unusual. Is it frustrating if you're a fan who wants Pennywise back on your screen right now? Sure. But the alternative is a rushed Season 2 that doesn't live up to the mythology in a franchise where the source material only gives the writer scraps to build from in the first place. Given how much of this story has to be invented rather than adapted, I'd rather they take the extra year. Here's where things actually stand as of this exact update. Not officially renewed. Fully expected to happen. Writers already deep into scripts. HBO CEO saying he's feeling good about what he's hearing. A 3-season plan already mapped out in broad strokes. And a release window that realistically points toward 2027 or later. If you want a moment this actually becomes official, that's exactly what this channel tracks. Subscribe so you don't miss the announcement the second it drops, and drop a comment with which era of Derry you're most curious about, 1935, or that potential jump all the way back to 1908. I'll see you in the next one.